A man who loves a woman should know where he belongs. My fiancé belonged at my feet. I had spent 7 years teaching him that apologies meant nothing unless he lowered himself and proved them. I was not cruel. I was making sure I never became the kind of woman who begged a man to stay. At the altar, while the officiant waited for my answer, Aaron touched his cuff and watched me with the quiet face he used when he had already lost. I was about to make our entire wedding see exactly who would lead our marriage. My name does not matter. You will give me another one anyway, something ugly and simple, because people always need a name they can spit at the woman they have already decided to hate. Still, I will tell my version, because I was there, and most of you were not. For the record, I was Delaney Pierce, 31 years old, a senior brand strategist, and I knew how people worked. I knew what made them look, laugh, and obey. So judge me if you want, but a man who says he loves a woman should understand where he belongs. My fiancé belonged at my feet, and I had spent years teaching him that. Be serious. I did not drag him down. I only refused to accept weak apologies, and he always chose to kneel. That was how he proved he meant what he said. Aaron and I had been together for 7 years, engaged for 14 months. He was a civil engineer, steady at work and good with his hands. Every Sunday, he brought home 2 almond croissants and gave me the larger one. When I told him I had never had a peaceful corner in my childhood home, he built a window seat beside our bedroom window. 2 weekends, 4 boards, 1 soft cushion. That was Aaron. He could build a place for me to sit, but he could not sit beside me and explain what was happening inside his head. The first time I made him kneel was after our 3rd anniversary. I had waited in a restaurant for almost an hour while he stayed at an emergency inspection. He sent 2 messages, no call. When he came home, I was still wearing my dress, and the candles had burned into small pools of wax. He apologized. I told him words were easy. He asked what else I wanted. I said that if he understood how small he had made me feel, he could lower himself and say it again. He stared at me, then touched the edge of his left cuff. Aaron always did that when he was losing. He smoothed the fabric with his thumb, looked down, and became quiet. I knew that silence. It meant he wanted the argument to end without facing me. Then he got on his knees. I counted 4 seconds before he looked up. He apologized again, slowly, and I forgave him. That should have ended it, but the image stayed with me. Aaron was tall and respected, yet 1 sentence from me had placed him below me. Listening, unable to hide. After that, the rule became useful. If he forgot to collect my dress, he knelt. If he answered a message late, he knelt. If he promised to help choose wedding invitations and watch the end of a game first, he knelt. Sometimes the mistake was serious. Sometimes it was small. Sometimes, of course, I let him wonder what he had done before I explained it. A man should pay attention without needing every feeling translated for him. Chloe was the first friend I told. She said most women begged their men for respect, while I had trained mine to understand consequences. I liked that word, trained. It sounded cleaner than controlled. The first video happened beside my bedroom vanity. My gold phone stand was already there because I had been recording a makeup review. Aaron had forgotten to replace my charger. I told him he knew the rule. He looked at the phone and asked whether I was recording. I said that should not matter if his apology was sincere. He touched his cuff. Then he knelt. I watched him through the screen. The camera made everything sharper. When I told him his first apology did not sound sincere enough, he repeated it. I almost laughed before he finished. Later, I sent the clip to Chloe. She called him Sunil's a lot. I sent it to 2 more friends. 3 women. 7 laughing messages. 1 video that became funnier each time I watched it. The next morning, Aaron asked why my friends were messaging so early. I showed him the clip. He did not become angry. He only watched himself on the floor, touched his cuff, and asked me to send him a copy. I asked why. He said he did not want us to lose it. That answer made me smile. I thought he had finally learned to laugh at himself. I sent it before breakfast, then placed my phone back in the gold stand. After that, I stopped waiting for real mistakes. Sometimes I became offended because I wanted that feeling again. Sometimes I stayed silent until Aaron searched his memory for what he had done. And sometimes I turned on the camera before he entered the room because Chloe and the others were waiting for a new video. Aaron always touched his cuff. He always went quiet. And sooner or later, he always ended up where he belonged. 4 months before the wedding, I decided the kneeling videos deserved a place in our celebration. I imagined a short reception montage between the speeches and the first dance. Be serious. Weddings were full of embarrassing childhood photos and relatives making jokes that went too far. My idea was simply more honest. Chloe loved it. She said the guests would finally understand why I never worried about Aaron leaving me. A man who could be brought to his knees over a forgotten charger was not going anywhere. Evan Shaw, our videographer, liked it even more. He said every strong wedding film needed a moment people would replay. I told him I already had 11. Aaron was not included in that conversation. We met at a rooftop wedding showroom to review the media plan. Chloe sat beside me with champagne. Aaron arrived late from work and took the chair farthest from the screen. Evan opened the shared wedding folder. Childhood pictures, guest messages, ceremony playback, private uploads. Aaron asked what was inside the private folder. I told him it was mostly dress fittings and bridesmaid messages. That was my first deliberate lie. The folder held 6 kneeling videos, including one from the night Naomi was in the hospital. Aaron had spent hours beside his sister after a car hit her vehicle. She was not badly injured, but he had ignored my messages for 23 minutes. When he came home, I made him apologize for making me worry. He knelt beside the sofa while my phone recorded. I sent that clip to Chloe before Aaron stood up. Evan moved the cursor toward the folder, but Aaron asked him not to open it. The room became quiet. I smiled and told Aaron he was nervous because people might discover he had manners. He asked whether I had promised the videos would stay between us. I said yes. Then I explained that my closest friends did not count as the public. Aaron touched the edge of his left cuff. Slow. Careful. He asked how many people had seen the recordings. I told him 3 or 4. The real number was 9. Chloe laughed and said he should be proud that women thought he was trainable. Evan smiled, but the junior wedding planner lowered her eyes. I decided she was too young to understand long relationships. Aaron asked me to delete the hospital video. He named the date, the time, and why he had been late. He reminded me that Naomi had been crying when he left. He said he had told me all of that before I made him kneel. His calm annoyed me more than anger would have. I told him he always turned feelings into reports. Dates. Times. Facts. No warmth. I said if he had learned how to speak like a partner, I would not need stronger ways to reach him. That was not entirely false. Aaron could stand in the same room and disappear behind silence. My quiet man believed actions could replace emotional answers, but I knew how to make him answer. Then Aaron named every folder in the correct order and asked whether the original upload dates were preserved. I turned toward him. Aaron had never cared about our media plan. Evan explained that every file kept its original date, source, and upload history. Aaron asked whether deleted files remained in the backup. Evan said they did for 30 days. I laughed and told Aaron he was suddenly interested in wedding videos. He said he wanted to understand where our private life was being stored. I heard suspicion. I did not hear fear. So I told him he should worry more about what he did on camera than where the files went. Chloe laughed again. The planner did not. Aaron smoothed his cuff and asked me one final time to remove the recordings. I said I would think about it. We both understood that meant no. After the meeting, Aaron spoke with Evan beside the screen. Evan pointed toward the laptop while Aaron listened. Chloe asked whether I was worried. I told her Aaron was only trying to feel involved. That explanation kept him in the role I understood. That evening, one bridesmaid left our group chat. Another stopped reacting to the clips. 7 women became 6, then 5. I still had Chloe. 5 people were enough for an audience. 2 weeks later, I recorded Aaron kneeling because he had placed my handbag on the floor. Before he lowered himself, he looked at the gold phone stand and asked whether the video would appear at our wedding. I told him only if it was funny. He touched his cuff, lowered his eyes, and went down. The clip was perfect. By midnight, Evan had added it to private uploads. The first time I made Aaron kneel in front of both families was at our rehearsal dinner. I had not planned it that way, at least not when the evening began. The restaurant had given us a private room with dark wooden walls and warm lights hanging above 6 long tables. 46 guests. 8 members of the wedding party. 2 cameras. I counted everything because details mattered, and I wanted the night to look perfect. My gold phone stand sat on the table beside my glass, angled toward Aaron's chair. Evan had professional equipment around the room, but I wanted my own recording. His cameras belonged to the wedding film. My phone belonged to me. Aaron's parents sat near the front. Naomi was beside them. My mother sat next to Chloe, who had already finished 1 glass of champagne before the first toast. Aaron had ordered the brand my mother liked, but the restaurant brought the wrong bottles. It was not his mistake. The manager admitted that before dinner even started. Still, when I looked at the label, I saw an opportunity. Be serious. A rehearsal dinner needed energy. Everyone had been polite for almost an hour, and polite people were boring. When Aaron stood to thank our guests, I interrupted him and asked whether he had forgotten the only thing my mother had requested. He looked at the bottle, then toward the manager. The manager started to explain, but I raised my hand and stopped him. I told the room that Aaron always had someone ready to protect him from the results of his mistakes. 2 of my co-workers laughed. Chloe joined them. Aaron asked whether we could discuss it after dinner. I heard the same old retreat in his voice. My quiet man wanted to move every uncomfortable conversation behind a closed door where he could wait until I became tired. I told him there was nothing private about disappointing the bride's mother in front of everyone. My mother touched my arm and said Aaron had ordered the correct champagne. I removed her hand. She did not understand that I was not talking about bottles anymore. This was about whether Aaron would challenge me now that both families were watching. I looked at him and said he knew how to apologize properly. The room became still. Aaron remained beside his chair. His father placed his glass on the table. Naomi stared at me without blinking. Chloe smiled, but even her smile had become smaller. Aaron asked whether I truly wanted him to do this there. I said yes. Then I reminded him that refusing would make the evening more uncomfortable for everyone. That was how Aaron worked. He hated scenes. He hated raised voices. He hated knowing other people were trapped inside our conflict. I only had to make surrender feel like the kindest option. He touched the edge of his left cuff. Once. Twice. Then he looked toward Evan and asked whether the cameras were recording. Evan said they were. Aaron told him not to stop. I almost laughed. I thought Aaron had finally accepted that the joke could make him look good. A man willing to laugh at himself seemed confident. That was how I planned to explain it later. Aaron walked toward me. 6 steps. I counted each one while the room watched. When he reached my chair, he lowered himself onto one knee. A sound moved through the guests, but it was not laughter. Not yet. I placed my hand on his shoulder and told everyone that this was how we solved problems in our relationship. I said some men needed clear rules before marriage. One co-worker laughed again. Chloe lifted her glass. I told Aaron to apologize to my mother. He did. My mother said he had nothing to apologize for. I told her she was ruining the moment. Then I told Aaron to apologize to me. He said he was sorry that the restaurant had delivered the wrong champagne. I shook my head and told him that was not enough. He needed to say he was sorry for disappointing me. Aaron looked up. His face did not show anger. It showed something softer, which annoyed me more. Sadness always made him look weak, and weakness gave him a way to avoid responsibility. He said he was sorry for disappointing me. The room stayed quiet. I looked at the phone screen. The angle was perfect. Aaron was below me. My dress looked elegant under the warm lights. The gold stand held the phone steady while I told our guests that marriage worked better when a man understood the chain of command. This time, a few more people laughed, but not Aaron's family. Not my mother. I placed one finger beneath Aaron's chin and lifted his face toward the camera. Then I allowed him to stand. He did not return to his seat. Instead, he walked directly to Evan and asked whether the audio was clear. Evan checked his screen and said every word had been recorded. Aaron nodded and smoothed his cuff. I raised my glass and told the room the rehearsal had gone perfectly. Naomi stood before dessert. She said she felt unwell, took her handbag, and left. Aaron's father followed her without saying goodbye to me. My mother stayed, but she never touched her champagne again. Chloe checked her phone 3 times and stopped making jokes. I noticed every reaction. I dismissed all of them. Weddings made people emotional. Families became protective. None of that changed the fact that Aaron had knelt when I told him to. After dinner, he waited beside the car while I said goodbye to the remaining guests. When I joined him, he asked whether seeing him on the floor had made me feel loved. I told him it had made me feel respected. He asked whether those 2 things were the same to me. I did not answer. Instead, I accused him of making the room uncomfortable with his serious face. Aaron looked through the windshield and said nothing during the drive home. His silence felt like punishment, but it also confirmed what I already knew. He would complain in private, withdraw for a few days, and still stand beside me at the altar. The rehearsal had only been practice. For the wedding, I wanted something bigger. My mother confronted me 6 days before the wedding. We were inside her apartment, surrounded by garment bags, shoe boxes, and flower samples that covered almost every chair. My wedding dress hung beside the balcony door. 9 white roses stood in a glass vase on the table. I counted them while she told me the rehearsal dinner had reminded her of my father. I told her to be serious. My father had controlled money, movement, and every important decision in our home. He had decided what my mother wore, where she went, and who she spoke to. I had never stopped Aaron from working or seeing his family. My mother said control did not become love simply because the person standing above was a woman. I asked whether she had invited me over to help with the wedding or to insult me. She said she had asked me there because she did not want to watch me build a marriage that required one person to remain smaller. That sentence irritated me because it sounded prepared. Calm people always believed calm words made them correct. I reminded her that she had stayed with my father for 23 years. She did not defend herself. She said surviving a pattern did not mean she was proud of it. I wanted her to argue. I wanted anger, excuses, anything weak enough for me to push against. Instead, she asked why I needed Aaron on the floor before I could believe he loved me. I looked at the roses again. 9. One had started turning brown around the edge. I told her Aaron chose to kneel. I had never pushed him down or held him there. She said fear did not always look like fear. Sometimes it looked like a person deciding that surrender was easier than another night of conflict. I laughed and told her she was describing every marriage she had ever known. My mother did not laugh back. Aaron arrived 20 minutes later to collect the wedding documents. He stood near the dress while my mother carried the flower samples into the bedroom, giving us privacy without calling it that. He looked tired. His face had become thinner during the last month, and the skin beneath his eyes was darker. My quiet man asked whether I still planned to use the kneeling videos at the reception. I told him I had removed most of them. That was a controlled truth. I had removed 2. 11 remained. Aaron asked how many were still in the folder. I said 2. He touched the edge of his left cuff, slowly. Then he told me he had once believed I would stop when the joke stopped making people laugh. There was no anger in his voice. That made it harder to dismiss. He said Naomi had left the rehearsal dinner because she could not watch another person turn his embarrassment into entertainment. I told him Naomi had always disliked me. He said his father had followed her because he was ashamed that he had stayed seated as long as he did. I accused Aaron of turning his family against me. He asked whether I truly believed they needed his help after what they had seen. For a few seconds, the room became too quiet. I remembered the restaurant, my mother's untouched glass, Chloe checking her phone, the junior planner lowering her eyes. I remembered Aaron kneeling beneath my hand while nobody laughed. A thought opened inside me. Not guilt. Something worse. The possibility that the room had not seen a strong woman controlling her future. Maybe they had seen a man deciding how much more he could survive. I looked at the dress beside the balcony door. White fabric, perfect stitching, thousands of dollars, 1 week from becoming real. I closed that thought before it could damage anything. Aaron had always been sensitive after public attention. He would calm down once the wedding began. I told him I understood that some of the videos had gone too far. His eyes lifted toward me. I offered a compromise. There would be no full montage during the reception. Instead, we would perform one final kneeling joke at the altar. Less than a minute. After that, I would never ask him to kneel again. Aaron asked whether he had any choice in this compromise. I said of course he did, but refusing would make the guests think something was wrong between us. He told me a wedding vow should not begin with a threat. I called it closure. I had even prepared a playful promise for him. He would agree to listen, apologize quickly, and remember who kept our home together. Aaron refused to read it. I told him he was proving my point. Whenever I tried to create emotion, he became cold. Whenever I asked for reassurance, he offered silence. That part was true. Aaron could disappear while standing directly in front of me. He could turn his face into a locked door and force me to keep pushing until I received a reaction. I told him I should not have to humiliate him to make him speak. Aaron agreed. For 1 second, I thought I had won. Then he said I should have stopped humiliating him. He collected the documents and left without touching me. The next afternoon, I visited the venue to inspect the final setup. Marcus, the AV manager, stood beside the reception screen with Aaron. They knew each other's names. Marcus told Aaron every original file had been backed up and that the ceremony microphone, reception projector, and private media folder were connected. I asked what they were preparing. Aaron said he had arranged a wedding surprise. A laptop sat open on the control table. 11 video files filled the screen. I recognized the dates. They were the dates of the kneeling recordings. I could have asked why they were there. Instead, I decided Aaron had selected the funniest clips for my montage. That explanation protected everything I believed about him. My quiet man complained, withdrew, then gave me what I wanted. Before I left, Marcus said the backup system would preserve every live recording automatically. Aaron smoothed his cuff. I smiled and said the wedding would be unforgettable. Chloe did not answer my calls that evening. After midnight, she sent one short message saying she was tired and would see me at the hotel. No joke, no laughing emoji. 8 words. I read them twice, then placed my phone in the gold stand and recorded a video about how calm I felt before becoming Aaron's wife. The morning of the wedding, I woke before the alarm. The bridal suite smelled like hairspray, coffee, and the white roses my mother had ordered. 6 bridesmaids moved around the room. 5 were talking. 1 was crying in the bathroom because the zipper on her dress had split. I counted all 6 before I sat in front of the mirror. Details mattered. A woman who controlled the details controlled the day. My gold phone stand waited beside the makeup table, already holding my phone at the angle I liked. Chloe arrived 20 minutes late. She hugged me, but her arms felt stiff. When I asked whether she was excited, she said the day would be important. Not beautiful. Not perfect. Important. I told her to be serious and handed her my phone. She knew the plan. When the officiant asked whether I accepted Aaron as my fiancé for life, I would stay silent. Chloe would begin recording from the first row. Evan would capture Aaron's face from the side. Then I would tell my quiet man what he needed to do before I gave him my answer. One final kneeling. One final apology for every time he had made me feel invisible. After that, I would say yes, and the guests would laugh, and the ceremony would continue. Chloe asked whether Aaron had agreed. I told her he had not refused. She looked at the phone but did not take it. I placed it in her hand and closed her fingers around it. Aaron often used silence because he wanted other people to make difficult decisions for him. I had simply made this one for both of us. My mother entered while the stylist adjusted my veil. She stood behind me in the mirror and asked whether I was sure about the altar joke. I said it was not a joke. It was a promise between Aaron and me. She asked whether promises were not supposed to be accepted by both people. I told her she had spent enough years surrendering to my father and should understand why I refused to begin my marriage beneath a man. My mother looked at my reflection for several seconds. Then she stepped away without answering. The ceremony garden was brighter than it had looked during rehearsal. White chairs formed two clean sections. Pale petals covered the aisle. 83 guests waited beneath the summer sun. I counted the first 3 rows while the music played. Aaron stood beneath the flower arch in a dark suit. His left cuff sat slightly lower than his right. For 1 second, I remembered the window seat he had built, the Sunday croissants, the night he carried me from the car after I injured my ankle. Those memories did not weaken my plan. They made the test feel necessary. A man who had loved me for 7 years should have been proud to prove it for less than 1 minute. I walked toward him. Aaron watched me without smiling. During his vows, his voice remained calm. He promised loyalty, honesty, and respect. When it was my turn, I spoke about strength. I explained that a home needed one clear direction and that I would never allow silence to control our marriage. My mother lowered her eyes. Chloe held my phone in her lap. Then the officiant asked the final question. I did not answer. A few guests laughed softly because they believed I was nervous. The officiant repeated the question. I smiled at Aaron and told him I could not say yes yet. The garden became quiet. I explained that Aaron had one final responsibility before he became my fiancé for life. He needed to show everyone that he understood his place in our home. Aaron looked at the officiant, then back at me. He asked whether I wanted to complete the vows without the performance. His voice was low and clean. He said we could leave the old ritual behind, finish the ceremony with dignity, and discuss everything privately afterward. That was his final offer. I refused. I told him he did not get to disappear inside silence on our wedding day. For 7 years, I had fought for every emotional response while he escaped into work, schedules, and quiet rooms. I told him he could stand beside me and still make me feel completely alone. Aaron did not argue because he could not. It was true. My quiet man had often forced me to push until I received anything real from him. But being right about that gave me courage to say the rest. I told him that if he wanted me to say yes, he had to get on his knees and ask properly. The officiant stepped back. Someone whispered my name. I moved closer to the microphone and told Aaron that his place had always been at my feet. Marriage would not change it. My mother stood from her chair. I told her to sit down. Aaron smoothed the edge of his left cuff. Once. Slowly. Then he asked whether the altar microphone was still active. Marcus confirmed it from beside the sound equipment. Aaron asked me to repeat exactly what I expected him to do. I thought he was surrendering. I leaned toward the microphone and said I wanted him on his knees. I wanted him to beg me to become his wife. I wanted every person present to understand that I would be the authority inside our home. Aaron looked toward Chloe. I followed his eyes. Her phone remained in her lap. I waited for her smile. She gave me nothing. Then Aaron looked toward Evan's camera and said he understood. He lowered himself. His right knee touched the white fabric beneath the altar. A wave of movement passed through the guests. Several phones lifted. Chloe's did not. I no longer needed her. I had 83 witnesses, 2 professional cameras, and Aaron exactly where I had trained him to be. He looked up at me. For years, that image had been proof that I could never become my mother. At the altar, it looked like victory. I raised my chin and waited for him to beg. I was certain the wedding was finally mine. Aaron stayed on one knee for 3 seconds. I counted them. 1, 2. 3. Then he stood. He did not ask me to marry him. He did not touch the ring. He only smoothed the edge of his left cuff and smiled. It was not the nervous smile I knew. It was calm, finished. He turned toward the guests and said the first time I recorded him kneeling, I had sent him the video myself. The gold phone stand. The forgotten charger. The morning when he asked me for a copy because he did not want us to lose it. Marcus lowered the music. The large reception screen behind the garden came on. My face appeared first, laughing behind the camera while Aaron knelt beside our bedroom door. Then another clip played. Aaron beside the sofa. Aaron near the window seat. Aaron in the hallway after Naomi's accident. Different years, different clothes. The same cuff beneath his fingers. The same quiet face. My voice told him to apologize again because the first version did not sound pathetic enough. Guests shifted in their chairs. Then the group messages appeared. Chloe calling him Sir Neils-a-Lot. Me saying men became easier to control after public humiliation. My message about saving the crawling idea for the wedding. I grabbed Aaron's arm, but he stepped away. I ordered Marcus to turn off the screen. He did not move. I told Evan to stop filming. He kept both cameras pointed at me. The rehearsal dinner appeared next. My hand was beneath Aaron's chin while I explained the chain of command. Nobody laughed this time. I looked toward Chloe. Her chair was empty. Her bouquet rested against it. Aaron said every file had come from the wedding folder I created. I had uploaded the clips, captions, dates, and messages myself. He had not searched for evidence. I had organized it for him. I told the guests they were private jokes. My mother said a joke ended when only one person was laughing. The officiant closed his book. I said we could continue once Aaron calmed down. He placed the ring on the altar cloth and said there would be no wedding. He admitted he had spent years kneeling because surrender was easier than conflict. His silence had helped build the pattern. Then he said I had turned that weakness into entertainment. Evan walked forward and removed the microphone from my dress. He told Marcus to preserve the original recording. Aaron left with Naomi and his father. Nobody stopped him. 2 days later, his attorney sent a privacy takedown demand and warned that a civil complaint would follow if any video remained online. I moved into my mother's spare room. The wedding costs emptied most of my savings. 5 bridesmaids left our group chat. Evan removed my access to the footage. My company placed me on leave after clients saw the ceremony clips. I had believed power meant never being the person on the floor. I thought there were only 2 places in love, above and below. Aaron had finally refused both. The gold phone stand arrived with the rest of my belongings. I placed it on the desk. For the first time, there was nobody beneath its camera. The final image from my wedding was not Aaron begging at my feet. It was me standing alone beside an empty altar after he had already risen.